In the past few months alone, at least 9 NATO countries have reported unidentified or Russian-made drones entering their airspace. According to Euronews, the list is growing fast, and it's not just frontline states anymore. We're talking about Poland, Romania, Lithuania, Latvia, Denmark, Norway, Germany, France, and even Sweden, all spotting drones or unidentified aircraft that forced airports to close, flights to divert, or airspace to temporarily shut down. Poland saw as many as 19 drones flying deep into its territory. Denmark shut down 5 airports in a single week. Germany grounded flights in Munich twice. Romania, Lithuania, and Latvia all scrambled their air forces after multiple intrusions. And France, far from the front lines, reported drones near one of its military bases. That's not a coincidence, that's a pattern, and it's one that shows just how far Russia is willing to reach into NATO skies and how little NATO is doing about it. So, why is Russia sending drones across half of Europe? And why aren't NATO members shooting them down? And could the answer to this entire crisis really come from a tiny Swedish startup with a drone of its own? This is what we will discuss together in today's episode. I am your host, and this is the Interrunner Plus. Please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Over the last year, Russia's drones, jet fighters, and reconnaissance aircraft have turned NATO skies into their testing ground. These are not random glitches on a radar screen. They're deliberate probes, pushing the limits of how far Moscow can go before someone pulls the trigger. When 19 Russian drones flew into Poland on September 9th, NATO radars and warplanes scrambled to respond. A few days later, Romania's Air Force reported another Russian drone inside its airspace. Then came Estonia, where Russian jets crossed the border for 12 straight minutes, a direct airspace violation. That same day, Germany had to scramble Eurofighters to intercept a Russian surveillance plane flying dark with its transponders off over the Baltic Sea. And by the end of that week, drones were spotted over Denmark, not just anywhere, but above its main Air Force base that houses most of its F-16s and F-35s. When you see that pattern, it's hard to call it an accident. This is Russia pushing, step by step, to see what it can get away with. Some analysts call it gray zone warfare. I call it punishment. Punishment for every missile, every tank, and every euro that NATO countries have sent to help Ukraine fight back. Putin knows he can't strike Berlin or Warsaw directly, but he can send drones to remind them of the cost of defying him. Every drone that enters NATO airspace and leaves without being shot down is a quiet message. You don't control the skies anymore, I do. And it's working. Denmark has already given all of its artillery to Ukraine. Poland's stockpile of anti-war interceptors is being drained fast, and now, when these same countries have to defend their airspace, they're realizing they might not have much left to defend with. Russia denies everything, of course, claims it's all a coincidence, or Ukrainian debris drifting west. And Donald Trump said it bluntly.
Mr. President, do you think that NATO countries should shoot down Russian aircraft if they enter their airspace?
Yes, I do.
That comment made headlines, not because it was shocking, but because he said what every European leader is too afraid to admit. If NATO keeps allowing its skies to be violated without response, it's only a matter of time before Putin tests something bigger. And when that happens, the cost of hesitation will be far greater than the cost of a single missile. Right now, most of Europe is choosing caution. Poland and Estonia have called for consultation with the North Atlantic Council, trying to manage the crisis diplomatically. And I get it, shooting down a drone might sound simple, but it's not. If a drone doesn't pose an immediate threat, taking it down could cause debris to hit the ground, risking civilian lives. And most importantly, it's an economic trap, not just a military one. It costs a few $1,000s to launch a Russian drone, but hundreds of thousands to shoot it down. According to Polish military analysts, taking down those 19 drones that crossed into Poland's airspace would have cost around $8 million. You heard that right, million. $8 million. That's because the missiles NATO typically use, AIM-9 Sidewinders, AIM-120 AMRAAMs, IRIST, or Patriot interceptors, range anywhere between $400,000 and $4 million each. And they're being used against drones that cost a few $1,000s a piece. It's like firing a luxury car at a lawnmower. Economically, it's unsustainable. Every interception drains the very stockpile that Europe might need in a real war, and Putin knows it. Every time NATO hesitates, Putin grows more confident. And every time a drone crosses a European border, it chips away at the credibility of Article 5, the very foundation of the alliance. So the question becomes, if this keeps happening, how long until one of these accidents forces NATO to finally respond? Because at the rate we're going, Russia doesn't need to win a war. It just needs to keep proving that NATO won't fight one. Did you know that 98% of our viewership isn't subscribing? Please consider liking this video and subscribing to the Interrunner Plus. It helps us a lot. And that brings us to Sweden, the quiet, neutral-ish country that somehow found itself building the most talked about interceptor in Europe. While NATO generals hold round tables about missile costs, a small Swedish company called Nordic Air Defense decided to build something different. A drone that hunts other drones. It's called Kreuger 100XR. Now, before you roll your eyes thinking this is another Chinese military gadget, here's what makes it worth talking about. It changes the math. Remember the $8 million price tag to shoot down 19 Russian drones over Poland? The Kreuger's whole philosophy is to flip that equation. Instead of a missile that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, the Kreuger is designed to cost a few thousand. It's small, battery-powered, and most importantly, smart. Think of it as a disposable bodyguard that learns from every mission. You don't buy one to protect a base, you buy hundreds to protect a country. Nordic Air Defense didn't invent new explosive or fancy radar systems, they wrote code. Most of the Kreuger's power lies in its software. It updates, adapts, and hunts autonomously. And because it's cheap, countries like Poland or Denmark could blanket their skies with them instead of draining their missile stockpiles. Volvo Defense is already partnering with the company to mount these interceptors on vehicles, modular launch boxes that can protect airports, border stations, even energy infrastructure. It's not science fiction. It's the first glimpse of what a European-made air defense network could look like. And that's the real story here. It's not just about drones. It's about Europe finally learning to defend itself. For decades, NATO air defenses have depended on expensive American systems, Patriots and AMRAAMs, all brilliant, but all imported. Sweden's Kreuger XR represents something more symbolic: sovereignty. A reminder that Europe can build its own layer of protection, cheaper, faster, and politically independent. Of course, no system is perfect. Autonomous interceptors raise ethical and legal questions. Who is responsible if an AI-guided drone makes a mistake? And mass-producing cheap interceptors means anyone, including the wrong side, could eventually get them. But compared to spending millions to shoot down $10,000 drones, that's a problem Europe can afford to have. The Kreuger XR might not stop Putin's provocations overnight, but it changes the rules of the engagement. It tells Moscow that Europe is adapting, not waiting. And maybe that's the lesson in all of this. The next war isn't about who has the biggest missile, but who can write the smartest code. So what do you think? Is this the beginning of a new, smarter era of European defense, or just another patch in NATO's crumbling wall? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Finally, 90% of our viewership isn't subscribing. If you like this episode and want to see us again, subscribe to the Interrunner Plus and see you in the next episode.